Outperformance Shop is a proud supporter of Solid Rock Radio. They specialize in retail and wholesale of automotive high-performance racing and off-road products. They also carry a variety of accessories from remote control cars to rock and roller multi-carts. On the web at outperformance.com. Backstage with Mothership on Solid Rock Radio begins now. Hear the best in new music, artist interviews, stories from the road, and more. You are now backstage, and here's your host, Mothership.
Hey everybody, Joran Messer is the frontman and the musician for the up-and-coming metal band called Dire. He just released Dire Volume 2, and you need to know about it, so let's listen. Joran Messer of Dire. What is a person of color in extreme South Georgia, basically in the middle of nowhere, making faith-based metal music? Are you crazy?
I feel like it sometimes. I just love metal and love making music. And I don't know, just hope to possibly impact people the way that some of my favorite bands have impacted me.
So you're in a little town called Quitman. I don't know if I told you this yet, but we lived in Lakeland, Georgia, which is just north of Valdosta. We served at a church down there, which I actually bought a van in Quitman once.
Oh, I'm trying to sell a van right now, so.
Oh, man, too late. Already have one. Well, tell everybody who Joran Messer is.
I don't know. I think a lot of times I think of myself in the context of like music and stuff. Just a dude. My regular job, because I don't make tons of money with Dire, is I cut meat. I've done that for like 13 years now. When I was 18 years old, I started working in a grocery store here in town, and I've done that for a handful of places over the years, until we hit it big.
That's right.
Yeah.
Having a husband that was in the grocery business for a while, I know that if you had a good meat cutter, you kept him.
And yeah, it's still like that. It's hard to find people that are able to do it well. And I enjoy it. I feel like I could enjoy almost any job. But it sounds dumb, but there's like an art to it. I enjoy creating things or cutting stuff and trying to make it look, nice and totally different than music, obviously. But
it's an art.
Yeah.
So you were born in Quitman?
I think I was born in Valdosta, which is right next to Quitman. I've lived here all my life, yeah.
For those of you who don't know, which is probably most of you, Quitman in Georgia is about 20 minutes west of Valdosta and about 30 minutes north of the Florida line.
Yeah.
So where did this desire to do metal come from? How did you get involved in that kind of music?
I wouldn't say like a sheltered kid, but I listened to really of my own choice. I just listened to a lot of Christian stuff when I was younger. I didn't even know what metal was until, I don't know, like I was an older teenager. Weirdly, the band, we did a cover of one of their songs on the last EP, Depth, Wilderness by the OC Supertones, which I don't know if you're familiar with them. They are a ska band. Not really metal at all. But that was the band that really got me into music because some of their lyrics are just so, I think I got the Loud and Clear record. I think that was the first record that I actually owned of my own, and I loved it. I didn't realize people wrote stuff like that. You know what I mean? It was a lot of the things that I had been thinking, it's here nor there, but a lot of music isn't as deep or doesn't really provoke as much thought as some of their stuff did. And I was like, whoa, you can do this? They're still my favorite band, honestly. I know they're not, and they've really impacted my thinking, I would say, with their lyrics and stuff, and also just my desire to do music, just to create music. And from there, they had little bits of stuff here and there that had rock and metal influences. And I think from there, I just started listening to heavier bands. Demon Hunter is probably the first metal band that I actually listened to that's actually metal. And very similar to Supertones. I loved a lot of their lyrics, and I love the way that they sounded. From there, I just started listening to the Living Sacrifice, the Showdown, all the Christian metal bands at that time.
I agree. I love bands like Demon Hunter. They have thought-provoking, deep, poetic lyrics.
Yes.
When did you pick up your first guitar?
I think I was 16. I want to say I was 15 or 16 years old. And my stepdad actually had an acoustic guitar. And I really wanted to play guitar because I was starting to get into music and writing songs and stuff. I'd already written some songs, but, I didn't know anything about playing music. And I think I asked my family or my grandparents for something for a guitar for Christmas. And they're like, well, if you learn the acoustic guitar, we'll get you the guitar. Which at the time, you know what I mean? I didn't realize there's not necessarily a huge difference, but there is a difference in what you would play, what sounds really good. So I learned all the, just traditional basic chords and stuff. And then when I got an electric guitar, I tried playing like sweet riffs with that sort of stuff and figure out songs for bands that I like, where it was these chords, but they were not just like open, the full chords. I didn't know that. And I was like, why does this sound so lame? Like, why can I not do it? So anyway, figured out power chords and that sort of stuff and just grew from there.
Did you play for your church?
I'd never played like in like the worship team. I played at church a few times, just here and there. Like our band, like when we first started, it wasn't really a show per se, but the first show-esque thing that we did was at the church that we were at the time. It was like a youth lock-in or something like that. Mm-hmm. I want to say the first show that we played under the name Dyer. And we played at churches a couple times since then. But yeah, I've never played in church like as a, worship musician or anything.
More than one band made it big after playing at Lock-In. When we were in youth ministry years ago, we had a band that came for one, and they eventually became Casting Crowns.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. How do you create? Do you hear a song in your head, riffs in your head, lyrics? How does that work with you? Did you start covering music and then start writing music?
Well, actually, I never really did a lot of covering of stuff. Like when I was learning guitar, I'd have all my other friends that could play guitar were also learning to be like, hey, can you play this song by this band? And I was always like, oh, no, I can't. Like I know it, but I don't know how to play it at all. But I never really spent a lot of time learning that, which probably has been to my detriment, honestly, because I feel like I would have learned a lot of techniques sooner or at all if I had done that. But I never really played a lot of other band stuff when I was learning and stuff. But writing wise, yeah, I would say both. Like you said, it's kind of always thinking in terms of music. Like at work, I'm just singing random stuff. I'll sing, stuff about chickens or stuff about whatever I'm cutting, to myself. But just come up with melodies that way sometimes for like vocal things. And I love when I can sit down for like a long chunk of time and just sit and play guitar and just play riffs and do that. But I really don't have a lot of time to do that anymore. Like I have to do it when I have open windows of time to do that, and it's just more and more rare as I get older and have to do all kinds of adult stuff.
I know, adulting's horrible. And we've talked about musical influences. What about the spiritual influences in your life? What's your story?
I never really knew my dad, but my mom was there and my grandparents kind of helped raise me and stuff. I think my granddad was a father figure to me and influenced a lot of my understanding of just the gospel and stuff like that. I can't say who was. It was somewhere in Valdosta the first time that I actually like consciously prayed to be saved and believed in the gospel in that sense in a deliberate way. I'd been brought up in the church and it was just kind of a matter of fact thing. But there was a time when I was, I don't know, maybe 12 or something like that when it clicked in my brain. I'm like, this is real. This is important. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I would say influences. Ravi Zacharias, if you're familiar with him, he passed away, I believe, last year. But he was always a really engaging speaker to me, really thought-provoking and deep. And actually, I mean, the Supertones, seriously, like a lot of their lyrics they had a huge impact on me and just like my, I don't know, just the way that I think about my beliefs, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there something people would be surprised to learn about you? Besides the fact that you're a butcher.
Well, in this context, this wouldn't be the case. Everyone that I work with is always really surprised that I sing in a metal band, which, in this context, obviously that's the thing that we've led with. But I don't really know beyond that. I'm a pretty straightforward person. I don't know that there's anything about me that's very surprising or abnormal beyond that, like you said.
Yeah. Well, we met for the first time at Furnace 41 down in Jonesboro. I went down to see the girls from GFM who are friends of mine, and you opened for them, and it was awesome because we've known each other for I don't know how many years on Facebook.
A while, yeah. We've been friends on Facebook.
Yeah, at least 5 years.
Somewhere around there, I would say.
Yeah, so it was great to get to see you and get to hear you play. I was definitely impressed with your guitar skills.
Thank you.
I don't know if you just saw me staring at you playing. I don't know anything about playing an instrument, but I love to watch. And the same thing about drums. I love to sit there and just watch a drummer. That's one of my favorite things to do. It's just fascinating to me. But you really are skilled.
Thank you.
You're listening to Backstage with Mothership on Solid Rock Radio.
Tell us more about your band, Dyer. I want to know how you got started and who's in the band.
Well, that show that we played, we're playing shows with me, Nick McClendon on drums, and Caleb Barnes he's been playing bass and guitar, kind of alternating between those for us. But Caleb's not really in the band per se. He's just a really good friend of mine. And we kind of I think a month before that, I'd played bass at some show that he played. Again, because we live in the South and it's just really hard to find people that of a certain skill level that are also at all interested in playing heavy metal, you know. But we started weirdly, like my best friend at the time and my wife and a guy that worked with my uncle. There was a talent show in Valdosta in 2010, and I wanted to enter it. So I literally wrote a song specifically for that Dire didn't exist, and none of the songs that we, you know, have now or would have then existed. But Not My Home is the first song that I wrote for this band, and it's on volume 1. And we went and played that. It was terrible. We did really bad. Well, I did really bad. I won't say they did really bad, but like I was really excited and I totally butchered the guitar solo, and my stage presence was really terrible, and it was, you know, a learning experience. But that's how it started. And I was like, this is cool. You know, even though it was bad, I was like, I enjoyed that, and I would like to do this on a regular basis, and started writing more songs. If you listen to Not My Home, it's not a very metal song at all. And even the parts of it that are a little bit probably got edited after I wrote it that time. It was like a little slower and a little easier. And eventually, because I just like metal, the songs started getting heavier and heavier. And so I started writing more and more stuff that kind of went in that direction, which became, you know, the first record, volume 1.
Now, didn't you get some help from Jeremiah Scott of Demon Hunter?
Yes, we did. That was really cool. We went up to Nashville for like a week, me and Brandon Wade, who was the bassist at the time. We kind of like split it between him and the guy that we've done, I think the releases before that we did like an EP that I don't like to talk about because it's very bad. But,
it says really quickly.
Yeah, but that EP and then part of volume 1 and everything we've done since volume 1 we've done with Lee Dias here in Valdosta. Okay. And we kind of split that record between Jeremiah and Lee. Like we did a lot of stuff up there, but I didn't really know what to expect timeline wise, and we had not at all enough time to get like the 17 songs we were trying to record, and then we were going to narrow it down to 15 or 16, which it ended up being 15. But yeah, we got there and showed him. He was like, oh yeah, dudes, you're not going to be able to get all this done like in this amount of time. So
that is a lot of songs.
Yeah, it was a lot. And I think there was about the same for volume 2, and we just ended up, you know, weeding out the ones that didn't work really. But it was really cool getting to meet him, and I think we got to see like some Demon Hunter video before it was released, whatever current version they had, where there were like certain shots that were just missing, and like this will be here in text or something. But so that was really cool. It was just a cool experience. It was like, you know, we just hung out at his house, and I think he grilled or something for us, if I remember correctly. I might be making that up. Maybe we talked about it, but got to meet his family and stuff. It was cool. It was a cool experience.
How did you hook up with Jeremiah?
I think I just sent an email. I don't remember how I found out the email. I just was like, hey, how much you charge, you know, for doing this? We're trying to do a record. And I sent him like, I think a version of All Glory, which is the opening track. But it was like we recorded it, you know, once before we recorded it for the actual record. And just, you know, like this is the vein of stuff we're trying to do, and got back with me and kind of when he would be available and stuff like that. And we set it up. I was really surprised. There have been a couple of things like that throughout this band's existence where I'm like, oh, wow, they replied? Like, I didn't expect that at all, honestly. So that was cool.
That's right. Just load it up, shoot it off, and hope that something lands, right?
Yep.
Now, Lee owns Earth Sounds Studio down in the Valdosta area?
Yes.
All right. So tell us what that's like working down there in his studio.
It's very cool. Me and Lee, like, I think we think a lot alike, and it's really easy to communicate. Sometimes I'll have an idea for something musically. I can play music to a degree, but I don't know a lot of the language that I need to know to communicate certain things when I'm recording. I'm just like, I'll make it sound more like poof, you know what I mean? Things like that. and he understands all the things, like 90% of the things when I'm trying to say something like that. Like, this is how I want it to sound. And he's just a cool dude. And it's very convenient. Like, I'm thankful to God that we have someone that close, you know what I mean? Like, it's like a 20-minute drive, and I really like the quality of stuff that we've been able to get, you know, working with him. So that's just been a blessing that he's available and as skilled as he is at what he does.
Well, I did pick up the volume 1 when I was at the show, and I've enjoyed that. It is really well done, and I was listening on Spotify to the new one. So 2016 Dire 1 was released, and you've just now released Dire 2. Tell us all about it.
Well, it took much longer than we expected. I had most of these songs written, or most of the way written in 2017, actually. And it's crazy looking back in like some videos that I have of us in the studio from like 2 years or so ago. But, the way I write stuff, I just try to be honest about stuff, for one, and just think about things that I think need to be said, if that makes sense. If I see like, not necessarily just like in the church, but just in society or anything. If I see kind of like a predominant mentality on a certain thing that I'm like, I think the core of that thinking is wrong. I try to, there's a lot of songs on there where I feel like I'm trying to kind of challenge the status quo or whatever in a way that we approach a certain subject. Like not every single song is really, blatantly about, my faith in Christ or like a worship sort of song or whatever. Like I would say the majority of them are, just because the gospel, one, is so amazing. Two, the older I get, the more I understand there's like no aspect of my life that doesn't have something to do with God. You know what I mean? That I don't want to think of it like I've got to say Jesus this many times or have this many songs about the gospel, or you know what I'm saying, think in those terms in like kind of business sense. But at the same time, I do just want to make sure that I'm oriented around the thing that matters the most and transcends all the other things. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And but even in writing songs that aren't necessarily about that specifically, that's probably bleeds into my lyrics just because it impacts so much of everything. You know what I mean?
Well, it's your worldview.
Like, yeah, exactly. And it's just like I feel like I couldn't be honest in my songs and that not just come up, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So whether it's positive or negative to certain people, that's a very prominent aspect, I feel like, of at least most of our lyrics.
Now, you've got a video out for Forever New. I watched that. Tell us about that song.
That song, I kind of changed the lyrics at the last minute before we recorded it, but I wrote the song and had the idea of the song. I was kind of just going through like a kind of bad-ish place in my life where I was really like exasperated with myself and exasperated with people that I had been involved with, and just felt really disappointed and let down and just like, man, am I just wasting my time? Am I just, with music and just with work and stuff like that? I kind of had like a darker perspective than I usually try to have on a lot of stuff. And it's in a sort of veiled way because it's the kind of thing I wouldn't want to come out and, beat people over the head with, because you got to be careful, I feel like, with how you approach certain subjects. But it's basically the opening like verse and lead up to the chorus are kind of setting the imagery. And if you've seen the video, it's kind of the same kind of thing where it's just like, I'm at the end of my rope. I'm burnt out on life. I am kind of ready to end it, kind of ready to just do something, and not be dealing with this anymore. And it ties in the video. The dude's, walking to like a river, basically. The lyrics are drawn to the water's edge unto the end to which all my life led. It's kind of a double meaning thing because going up to there, it's just like, man, I'm sick of everything. I'm drawn to the river, to this, body of water, to the end of myself, which is just, every step that I've taken has led up to this place. But the chorus is living water flow, which, Jesus is the living water, and it's just about immersing myself in the reality of the gospel and the implications of the gospel and who he is. And, just like casting myself on him, if that makes sense.
You come to the end of yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
And even in the context of the chorus, I think it kind of talks about that, calling out for me to come drown in you, where it's, not literally kill myself, but just like, exactly. Dying to myself, come to the end of myself, calling out for me to come and drown in you and rise forever new, which is obviously, that's where the name comes from. That's just what it's about. Just Jesus being the living water, the restorer of my soul.
Amen.
Check us out on Facebook at I'm with Mothership.
What do you want people to come away with after listening to this album?
Well, most important thing is just kind of what that song Forever New is about, is just that, that there's a God, that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, that, he came to earth and lived a sinless life and died and rose again, and is the only way, I believe, that we can be forgiven and be reconciled with God and exist in the way that we were supposed to, which I think is fullness of life, communion with God in a way that we can't even fathom, here on earth. And I think that's possible only through Christ. And yeah, I would say first and foremost, that's what I hope people take from it, if, that are influenced just towards the gospel and come to understand or change their perspective maybe on what it is and what it means for them, or if it applies to them, and which it does. That's kind of the main thing. And I hope that's always the main thing with me in the songs that I write.
Tell me another song that's personal to you that you'd like to share a little about.
I want to say me personally, I would say Infinova, and it's basically just about getting older and kind of realizing things about life and yourself and other people. And, there's a line that says, I've come to find this life's not what I once believed, and all the beauty is but shadow and reflection, the faintest glimpse of something more that I've yet to see. The song, it develops to that point. It kind of opens up, and it's, I think, a little unclear what it's talking about, but it's basically about me just getting older and not necessarily being like jaded or anything, but you just kind of lose. The older you get and the more you experience, the more you learn where fulfillment isn't to a certain degree. And the more you learn where, okay, you know what, this thing that I used to hold up here, it's not that it's not good, that there are a lot of good things in my life that I've had and got to enjoy, but they're not the ultimate. None of those is sufficient in and of itself, and that's kind of where that line comes from. All the beauty is but shadow and reflection. And I believe all the good things that I can experience in life and observe in life reflect some aspect of God's nature or the relationship, like I said, that I feel like we're supposed to have, fullness of life, you know what I mean, in communion with God. And that's kind of what that song's about. And observing that about life, and then also looking forward to the consummation of all things, and that fulfillment, and then being with Christ, being with God, communion with God, and just existing in the way that I feel like, my soul longs to exist,
Where do you want to be spiritually in 5 years?
Well, I mean, I feel like the answer is just, it's just going to sound cliche or obvious. I'd like
Jesus.
to be, just closer to God and where I'm supposed to be, if that makes sense, which is, I could set points. I want to be here. I want to be here. This is a thing that I have to remember, and I don't do a good job of maintaining this. It's not so much that I need to have it figured out where I'm going to be, as much as I need to be abiding in Christ, walking with God. And I will be where I'm supposed to be. You know what I mean? And that's, I guess I would say that now and then I want to be just abiding in Christ and operating around what I understand to be true and being faithful to the God and to the gospel. And I don't say that as if to say that I am completely or anything like that, but you know what I'm saying? That might look totally different than what I would imagine in 5 years, but.
Where do you want Dyer to be in 5 years?
Okay, yes. Dyer, I would hope, one, I intend to move out of Quitman. Not for different reasons. I think it might be good for the band.
The hotbed of Christian metal, right?
Yeah, too many. It's just too crowded, man. There's too many bands doing this down here. Want to move somewhere where there's... No, but just... the beginning of this year, I had some job stuff kind of come up, and I really wasn't sure if I was going to have a job or a decent paying job. And so we kind of went around and looked at a handful of other places, taking into account music scene and, just job opportunities and cost of living and all that stuff. So possibly, Midwestish-er than we are. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I just pursue playing a lot more regularly than we've been able to the past couple of years, just because of lineup issues and obviously, COVID and everything. When we first started, before we actually had any releases, unfortunately, to leave with anyone, we went and we played a few small tours and played a handful of places that were kind of far off. And that was, I really miss doing that. If we ever get a solid lineup of people that are able to commit to doing that, that's what I would love to do on a more regular basis, and kind of, maybe it would be a little risky or something, but go and give it like a 100% attempt as far as actually playing live and touring and that sort of stuff. Really, we haven't been able to up until this point. It's very mostly been recording and, playing shows here and there. But
well, God's timing will be right. You'll know when it's right.
Yeah, that's why I'm not super stressed about it.
Switching gears to food questions. If you had to eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets.
Wow, that was quick.
Yeah, absolutely. I already basically almost do that right now, so it would be a very, very minimal shift from where I'm at.
Okay, if it's Sunday afternoon.
Oh, no. Oh, I didn't think this through.
Sunday afternoon and you're on the road, where are you going to stop?
I would say Zaxby's, but lately I've really not been very stoked on Zaxby's. I don't know. I'm not sure. Wendy's, probably Wendy's realistically. Not even out of I just love Wendy's, but that is realistically where I would stop. I know.
Talking about limited restaurants anyway and equipment.
Yeah.
Well, and if you're in the car and you went and bought some snacks, what kind of road snacks do you like when you're traveling?
This has only been recently, and this is going to sound weird because a lot of people in my life have always eaten them, and I have not until maybe legit a week ago. I don't know what possessed me, but I was like, you know what? I really want to try some Chex Mix. And I did, and I was like, man, these are so good. So it would be Chex Mix. Yeah, the cheddar Chex Mix. I've eaten so many bags of those in the past several days. Probably a bad amount, but.
Okay. Do you have any last words for the listeners before we go? Like maybe listen to the album?
Go and listen to it and read the lyrics.
Go listen to it. Go stream it. Go buy it. You got hard copies?
Yeah, we have hard copies, and we did. I think on the website you can get volumes 1 and 2 together for like a little cheaper than either one. And then like when we did pre-orders, we did like a special shirt, the art designed by Dave Quiggle.
Cool.
Those are done.
Pre-orders only. So if you've got one, you've got a limited edition, correct?
Yeah, we only ordered them for the people that ordered that pre-order.
That's a smart way to do it, though, when you're starting out like that.
Yeah, instead of ordering
do
like
what
a
you
ton.
sold. And then later, when you're like huge, someone will say, I have one of those shirts.
Yeah, it was only for pre-order. Only 10 were printed.
And they'll be like, and they're like, sell it on eBay. No way, man. It's too valuable.
Hopefully one day.
Yeah. We dream like that. I've seen it happen, man. Look,
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Casting crowns at the lock-in.
Yeah, exactly. You just don't know. And that's why I like to interview people from all different levels of the industry, because you just don't know where people are going to go, what they're going to do, and also what they can contribute to help other people who are starting out. So it's just this is just a great opportunity for me to get to showcase people that might be new, or maybe somebody that is from a band that you always hear from the lead singer, but you never hear from the guitarist, or you never hear from the drummer. Yeah, sure. These people have stories too, and I love to hear them.
Thank you, by the way, for doing this and having me. I feel like our biggest issue is like people, no one knows that we exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean, but they're about to find out. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go. I sure do appreciate you taking time out, and I hope to see you in concert again soon.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you for listening tonight. Stay tuned for more great music all night long. Be sure to check out my I'm With Mothership Facebook page and Solid Rock Radio's website. Follow the link under shows to Backstage with Mothership, which will have the links to my guests' social media accounts. This show will be replayed at 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Past interviews available on podcast.solidrockradio.org, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on Pandora platforms. And remember this week, be kind to one another.